Caveman built his den with bones abandoned in the forest, until heard the crying of a child inside. In the shadowy depths of an ancient forest, where the haunting calls of the wild echoed like forgotten whispers, a lone caveman toiled to build his den from the remnants of lives long lost. Each bone he stacked felt like a tribute to survival, yet within the cold embrace of his hardened existence, a deep loneliness gnawed at his heart. The forest, once a merciless guardian, now bore witness to his struggle, a man shaped by despair. But as twilight draped the trees in melancholy, a heart-wrenching sound shattered the stillness. The piercing cry of a child, lost and vulnerable, echoed through the thicket. The caveman's heart raced, a flicker of warmth igniting against the chill of his solitude. Here in a world hardened by brutality, the echoes of innocence stirred something deep within him, calling forth a desperate hope for redemption he never thought possible. Under the shadow of towering trees, the caveman knelt in the damp earth of the forest, an architect of the untamed wilderness. His calloused hands meticulously arranged the scattered bones, remnants of animals that echoed the cycle of life and death. Each crack and crevice spoke of survival, yet the hollow sound of clattering reminders weighed heavy in the pit of his stomach. The chill of twilight seeped through the dense foliage, mingling with the scent of damp soil and decay. A flicker of pride ignited within him. He had built a sanctuary, a fortress against the chaos of the outside world, yet something inexplicable tugged at the edges of his heart, as if the very earth whispered secrets he was yet to understand. As the moon began its ascent, washing the world in a silvery glow, a sound crept into the cacophony of the night, a soft whimper, fragile and raw. The caveman froze, his breath hitching in his throat, a primal instinct sending shivers down his spine. The warmth of his newly constructed den felt suddenly claustrophobic, as if the walls were closing in on him. He strained to listen, each heartbeat echoing in the silence, filling the space with tension. There it was again, a faint cry that pierced the stillness, urging him to leave the familiarity of his bone fortress. Uncertainty battled with an unnameable urgency, igniting a flicker of curiosity that had long been dormant within him. Hesitation clawed at him, yet instinct propelled his feet forward, crunching over twigs and leaves as he navigated the shadows. Each step felt monumental, a departure from the solitary existence he had carved out in this wild domain. He moved with a mixture of trepidation and resolve, like a ghost wandering in a long-forgotten dream, drawn to the source of despair. Memories of his own lost kin surged through him, faces etched in the fog of recollection. Those echoes of laughter now intertwined with the haunting cries, pulling him deeper into the darkness, where the light of understanding had never pierced. Emerging into a small clearing, he stilled. A bundle lay there, swaddled in tattered cloth, the source of the heart-wrenching cries. The caveman's breath caught in his throat as he beheld the child, a tiny face streaked with dirt and tears, eyes wide with fear. An overwhelming flood of emotion pierced through him, breaking the dam of his stoic exterior. In that moment, the bones around him lost their weight, the essence of life swirling in the air. This was not just a child, it was a second chance, a glimmer of hope amidst his desolation. The urge to protect battled against the instinct to retreat, igniting a fierce determination within him. Slowly, he knelt beside the child, the roughness of his skin contrasting with the softness of the fragile being before him. The cries subsided, a hopeful glimmer igniting in the child's eyes as they locked onto his gaze, searching for comfort in the unlikeliest of saviors. He extended a calloused hand, trembling as it hovered just above the small bundle, a silent promise of safety and warmth. Something profound shifted in him, a realization that redemption lay not just in the walls he had built, but in the new life he now cradled. In that sacred moment, the weight of the past began to lift, replaced by a flickering ember of purpose that would guide them both into the unknown. A chill filled the air as the last traces of autumn slipped into the embrace of winter. An old wooden bench, weathered by time and forgotten stories, sat beneath an arching maple tree, its branches stripped bare. A woman in a faded scarf clutched a fraying journal, her fingers trembling against the pages. Each word was a silent confession, a whisper of dreams long extinguished and hopes buried beneath layers of regret. As she flipped through the entries, her eyes glistened, echoing the whispers of a past self yearning for redemption. The The soft crunch of leaves underfoot barely registered as she braced herself against the encroaching cold, a stark reminder that some moments, once lost, can never be reclaimed. Across the park, a man stood with his hands shoved deep into his pockets, the weight of his own burden etched onto every line of his face. He watched the woman from a distance, caught in the thrum of his own memories, each heartbeat echoing the mistakes he had made. The sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the gentle curve of her smile as she recalled happier times. The sight pulled at his heart, an ache that layered over the bitterness of his past. His chest tightened, each breath a reminder of the promises he had failed to keep. He shifted his gaze, carving a path through the shadows of sorrow that clung to him, desperate to break free, yet hesitant to step forward into the light. An unspoken connection lingered in the air, palpable yet unacknowledged. The woman caught sight of the man, her heart racing as recognition flickered in her chest. Memories surged through her like a tidal wave, a collision of joy and despair. Once, they had laughed together under the same maple tree, their dreams intertwined like the roots of the tree above them. Now that laughter felt like a haunting melody. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the pages, desperate to unravel the past yet terrified of the confrontation. The weight of his gaze felt like a lifeline, a reminder that perhaps forgiveness was possible, if only for herself. She inhaled deeply, steeling herself for a moment that could tip the fragile balance of their lives. As if observing a silent play, time stretched between them, embroidered with the unfulfilled promises that hovered like dust in the air. The man took a step forward, the barrier of distance breaking under the weight of his longing. Each stride crackled with unspoken words, each heartbeat echoing the desire to rewrite their story. He paused, testing the fragile thread that connected them, his breath forming misty clouds in the cold air. He searched her face for understanding, for a glimmer of the friendship that once blossomed in warmth. The ground felt unsteady beneath him, the moment teetered on the edge of possibility. Should he speak, or would silence bind them in an eternal loop of regret? The world around them fell away, leaving only the two of them framed against the backdrop of winter's chill. As the first snowflakes began to drift down, softening the edges of the stark landscape, she finally found the courage to meet his gaze. Her heart thundered, a symphony of hope and fear, as she opened her mouth to speak, a whisper more potent than any declaration. The journal slipped from her lap, pages fluttering like birds taking flight, scattering memories into the cold air. In that moment, their eyes locked, and the uncharted path of forgiveness began to unfold between them. Two souls adrift, both yearning for redemption. The weight of the past remained heavy, yet the scent of a new beginning lingered in the air, fragile yet undeniable, ready to be embraced. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the dense underbrush. Leaves rustled softly in the gentle breeze, a whispering reminder of life's relentless movement. A figure sat on a fallen log, the weight of solitude etched into her brow. Her hands clenched the fraying fabric of her jacket, fingernails digging into the material as she fought against the choking sense of despair. Around her, the wilderness thrived, vibrant and indifferent, a stark contrast to the void consuming her heart. Even the birds, with their jubilant chirping, seemed to mock the quiet turmoil within her, echoing the laughter of lost moments and playful memories, all now swallowed by the unforgiving expanse of wild beauty. The world seemed to pulse with a rhythm she could no longer feel. Each heartbeat resonated like a drum in the silence, amplifying the ache of abandonment. She wrapped her arms around her knees, drawing them close, seeking warmth that wasn't there. With each shallow breath, her chest tightened, as if the very air was tainted with reminders of what once was. A flickering image of a childhood friend, their laughter ringing through the trees, surfaced but was quickly drowned in the gloom. The sun's descent painted her surroundings in hues of orange and purple, yet her heart remained shrouded in grey, a canvas of regret and unfulfilled promises, leaving her stranded beneath the fading light. The forest floor was littered with remnants of life, twigs snapped underfoot, a symphony of crunches that shattered the stillness. She hesitated to move, overwhelmed by the sense of being watched, not by eyes, but by the very essence of the wild, as if it held her secrets in its gnarled branches. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A deer darted through the thicket, its graceful form a testament to freedom she could only dream of. Envy sliced through her, sharp and unyielding, igniting a longing to escape the chains of her own heart. How could something so fragile survive in a world that had forsaken her? The creature faded into the trees, leaving her alone again, a mere spectre in a realm of vitality. As darkness draped the landscape, stars emerged, pinpricks of light in the vast black canvas above. She tilted her face to the sky, seeking solace in the celestial beauty, but even the stars felt distant, untouchable. Memories of warmth, of laughter shared under this very sky, cascaded through her mind like a torrent, each wave crashing against the shore of her resolve. The chill of the night seeped into her bones, a stark reminder of vulnerability. A single tear slipped down her cheek, carrying with it the weight of countless words left unspoken. It landed softly on the ground, absorbed by the earth, mingling with the shadows, as if seeking forgiveness for a pain that had no name. Yet within that darkness, a flicker of hope ignited, a tentative whisper that perhaps abandonment was not the end. Each star, a beacon of resilience, urged her to rise from the depths of despair. She stood slowly, legs trembling but determined. With every step she took, the weight of her sorrow shifted, each footfall a testament to her willingness to confront the abyss. The wilderness hummed around her, now a symphony of potential rather than confinement. The wild could no longer be her prison. It was an expansive frontier, an invitation to heal. As she moved deeper into the thicket, the night air filled with the promise of new beginnings, and her heart began to beat again, each pulse a declaration of her own survival. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow that mingled with the shadows settling over the desolate landscape. Each step Sarah took felt like a weight pressing down on her chest, as if the very ground beneath her was alive, whispering secrets of loss. The chilling breeze carried a scent of decay, reminding her of all that had been buried, of dreams turned to dust and laughter that echoed only in memories. She paused, her gaze fixated on the skeletal remains of what once was a vibrant town. A distant crow cawed, its call slicing through her reverie, and for a moment she felt like a ghost wandering the remnants of her own life, stuck between the past and the unforgiving present. There was a stone wall nearby, remnants of a structure long forgotten, now just an outline against the bruised sky. Sarah reached out, fingers brushing against the weathered surface, tracing the cracks that ran like veins through the stone. Each fissure told a story of despair, of resilience crumbling under time's relentless grasp. Her heart raced, caught between the urge to turn away and the longing to confront the pain that lay embedded in the walls. That tangle of emotions twisted in her stomach, a mix of fear and determination sparking a fire within her. She inhaled sharply, the air filling her lungs with both dread and a strange hope, the possibility of uncovering the truth hidden beneath layers of betrayal. As she stepped closer, the memories surged like a tide, memories of laughter now haunting, faces blurred by tears and time. She recalled the day she left, the weight of her decision, a heavy cloak draped over her shoulders. The ache of abandonment pulsed in time with her heartbeat, each thud a reminder that she was responsible for the choices that led her here. Was it too late to seek forgiveness? She closed her eyes, and for an instant she saw the faces of those she had hurt, their expressions a mix of anger and sorrow, each one a reminder of the fortress she had built around her heart, keeping love and regret at bay. The sound of crunching gravel beneath her feet broke the spell, jolting her back to the present. In the distance, shadows flickered against the twilight, figures emerging from the gloom. A knot in her stomach tightened as she recognized the silhouettes. They were the ghosts of her past, the very people she had turned her back on. Panic surged, yet beneath it, a flicker of yearning ignited. This was the reckoning she had feared, the moment to confront the pain she had allowed to fester. Yet in her chest a fragile hope began to blossom, one that whispered of healing, redemption, and the possibility of rebuilding what had been lost. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her back, summoning courage from the ashes of her regret. The air shifted as she moved forward, embracing the ghosts that awaited her. Each step felt like a release, the fortress around her heart weakening with each stride. Their eyes locked, unspoken words hanging in the air like delicate threads, binding them to a shared history that was both painful and beautiful. Silence enveloped them, thick with anticipation, as Sarah prepared to dismantle the wall she had built inch by inch. In that moment, she understood the power of vulnerability. each heartbeat a promise that redemption was not a destination, but a journey, one she was finally willing to undertake. The wind howled through the cracked windows, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked earth. In the dim light of the attic, dust particles danced like memories suspended in time. Lena stood frozen, her pulse racing as she brushed her fingertips over the edges of a forgotten photograph. The faces in the picture blurred together, but their smiles were unmistakable. Her heart clenched at the sight of her younger self, laughter captured in a moment forever lost. Each crease in the photograph whispered secrets of innocence and joy, a stark contrast to the heavy weight on her chest. As she recalled the voices of those long gone, she felt the first stirrings of grief, mingling with her yearning for reconciliation, a longing to reclaim what had been irrevocably shattered. A creak echoed from the stairs, pulling Lena from the past's embrace. Her brother's silhouette filled the doorway, eyes shadowed with the ghosts of their shared history. He hesitated, the space between them heavy with unspoken words, a chasm filled with years of silence and hurt. She sensed his turmoil, the way his fingers fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, an unconscious gesture revealing his own struggle. Memories surged, a tidal wave that threatened to sweep her away. The arguments, the accusations, the moments when love turned to estrangement. Yet beneath the surface a flicker of hope ignited. Perhaps this was the moment they could bridge their divide. She swallowed hard, daring to meet his gaze, her breath caught between fear and resolve. As Lena stepped closer, the raw electricity of their shared past pulsed in the air. Each heartbeat echoed loudly, a reminder of the pain they had endured separately. She didn't need words to convey the regret that suffocated her. It was all in the way her body leaned in, a tentative surrender to vulnerability. He mirrored her movement, the distance between them shrinking like the fog lifting at dawn. The air thickened with unresolved tension, the weight of their history pressing down like an iron shroud. In that fragile moment, a sliver of understanding sparked between them, illuminating the soft edges of their bitterness. They stood at the precipice of something profound, ready to confront the echoes of their fractured childhood together. The moment hung heavy, and Lena felt the warmth radiating from her brother's body, a silent promise of solidarity. He raised his hand, almost trembling, and gently placed it on her shoulder, a gesture filled with the weight of all they had lost and all they could still reclaim. The walls that had built up around her began to crumble, brick by brick, as a tear slipped down her cheek, glistening like a shard of glass in the soft light. It struck her that this was the first time in years they had shared a space devoid of anger. The air was charged, alive with possibility, and in that shared breath Lena knew they were no longer prisoners of their past. They were standing on the edge of healing, ready to delve into the depths of forgiveness. As they embraced, a shiver ran through Lena, a cathartic release that reverberated through her very being. She felt the warmth of his arms tighten around her, an embrace that spoke the words they had never managed to articulate. Time stood still as they shared the weight of their unprocessed grief, the unspoken apologies filling the silence. For the first time in many years, Lena didn't feel alone. She felt seen, understood, as if the pieces of her heart were being carefully gathered and stitched back together. The echoes of laughter, arguments, and sorrow faded into the background, replaced by the quiet promise of redemption. In that moment of vulnerability, the future shimmered like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, inviting them to step forward together, hand in hand, toward a new beginning. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm, golden hue that danced across the playground. Laughter echoed like a sweet hymn, punctuated by the distinct squeak of swings in their rhythmic ascent and descent. Mia sat on the bench, her fingers tracing the beads of her worn wooden rosary. Each bead felt like a moment lost, yet here the innocence of childhood unfurled before her eyes. A rush of nostalgia struck as she watched a small boy launch himself from a swing, arms outstretched as if attempting to fly. For a heartbeat, her heart soared with him, the weight of her past momentarily suspended, leaving only the tender sounds of joy that filled the air. Children chased each other in a giddy frenzy, their feet pounding against the gravel, creating a symphony of innocence. A girl with pigtails tripped, falling face first into the soft grass, and instead of tears, she erupted into giggles, her friends circling her, offering help and laughter in equal measure. Mia's mouth curled into a reluctant smile, the corners of her lips trembling, as if they remembered the sensation of joy but hadn't felt it in years. The warmth of those shared moments seeped into her, softening the edges of her guarded heart. It was a reminder of a time when troubles were merely shadows that could be chased away with a game of tag, when the world felt safe beneath the watchful gaze of the sky. As the sun surrendered its final rays, casting long shadows, the night began to hum with the sounds of crickets, a soothing backdrop to the fading energy of the playground. The children's laughter dwindled, replaced by soft whispers and the crunch of fallen leaves underfoot. Mia's eyes glistened with unspilled tears, emotions swirling within her like autumn leaves caught in a breeze. She remembered moments lost to darkness, choices that had led her away from the light. Yet, this innocent chaos around her felt like a balm, a whisper of hope that perhaps somewhere within the maze of her past, redemption could thrive. With each heartbeat, she longed to reconnect with that sense of untainted joy. The wind picked up, swirling around the playground, carrying the scent of pine and the faint sweetness of cotton candy from a nearby fair. A group of children gathered, their voices rising in unison, a melodious chant proclaiming a game of make-believe. Their imaginations wove worlds unseen, unfettered by burdens of the adult world. The sight of their carefree antics stirred something deep within Mia, a flicker of yearning for freedom long buried beneath layers of regret. She closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply, trying to absorb the purity of that laughter, letting it wash over her like a gentle tide. With it came an unsteady resolve, a burgeoning belief that in the echoes of innocence she might reclaim a piece of herself. As the stars began to puncture the darkening sky, Mia stood up, brushing off the memories of her past like dust from an old book. The sounds of laughter faded, but the warmth remained, its glow igniting a spark of possibility in the depths of her heart. She took a breath, buoyed by the collective innocence that surrounded her. The playground, now dimming, felt like a sanctuary, a place where she might begin to forgive not only herself, but the choices that had shaped her. Each step she took away from the bench was heavy, yet lightened by the newfound courage to seek redemption. The night embraced her like a long-lost friend, whispering promises of healing and the possibility of starting anew. The cafe hummed with the gentle murmur of conversations, the warm aroma of coffee wrapping around Sarah like a familiar blanket. She sat in the corner, fingers tracing the rim of her cup, each swirl a fleeting memory of laughter and love lost. Outside, rain streaked the window, blurring the world into a watercolor painting of grays and blues. As she took a deep breath, a wave of longing washed over her. Mingling with the bittersweet taste of her dark roast, she yearned for something she couldn't quite name, a connection that had slipped through her fingers like sand, leaving only echoes of what could have been. The bell over the door chimed, a sound both intrusive and inviting, pulling her gaze from the hypnotic rain. He stepped inside, shaking droplets from his coat, oblivious to the world beyond the threshold. In that moment, time seemed to pause, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. His eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on Sarah before continuing onward. Yet something in that fleeting glance stirred an old flame in her chest. She could feel her heart race, a flutter of hope intertwined with a pang of anxiety, as she remembered the shared dreams and fragile promises that had unraveled years ago. Without consciously deciding, Sarah found herself standing, her legs moving toward him as if guided by a force beyond her control. She could feel eyes upon her, the weight of judgment and curiosity, but all that mattered was the man before her. His slightly disheveled hair, the shadow of a beard that spoke of long days and sleepless nights. He turned, surprise flickering across his face, and in that instant, the world around them disappeared. The clatter of dishes and laughter faded into a distant hum, leaving just the two of them suspended in a moment filled with unacknowledged history. "Hello," she whispered, her voice barely above the clatter of cups, yet it felt like an echo of a past she thought was lost. He opened his mouth, the words trapped behind years of silence and regret. The flicker of recognition in his blue eyes told her everything, the shared memories, the laughter, and the unguarded moments that had defined them. She watched as a storm of emotions played across his face, confusion giving way to a flicker of hope, as if he too had yearned for this encounter to bridge the chasm of time apart. Their conversation flowed with an ease that felt both familiar and foreign, laughter spilling into the air as if it had never been stifled. With each word, the layers of hurt began to peel away, revealing the raw tenderness beneath. Sarah caught glimpses of vulnerability hidden behind his practiced smile, and with every moment, the barriers built from years of distance started to crumble. She felt alive again, every heartbeat a reminder that redemption was possible, that perhaps they could rewrite the narrative of their lives. In the depths of their shared silence, she dared to dream of what could be, standing on the threshold of something beautiful yet fragile, just like the rain-soaked world outside. A thick fog rolled in from the sea, enveloping the small coastal town like a shroud. The streets, once vibrant with laughter and chatter, lay desolate, echoing the absence of life. With every step, Elise felt the weight of silence pressing against her, an invisible shackle binding her to solitude. Shadows danced across her path, flickering like memories she could not grasp, while the crashing waves seemed to mock the distance growing between her and the world. She brushed her fingers against the weathered wood of the pier, the roughness grounding her in the present, yet the ache in her heart whispered of connections lost to time. Friends drifted apart, families scattered like leaves on the wind. In the narrow confines of her home, the walls bore witness to her unspoken battles. A half-empty teacup sat forgotten on the table, dust gathering where warmth once lingered. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to an unseen event, a reminder of moments slipping away. She wrapped her arms around herself, seeking comfort in the embrace of her own skin, but found only the chill of absence. The photographs hung on the walls stared back at her with frozen smiles, capturing laughter that had echoed through those very halls, now replaced by an oppressive silence. She turned away, eyes glistening, as if shedding tears would break the dam of isolation that had settled within her. Elise often watched the sun dive into the horizon, painting the sky with fiery oranges and deep purples, a reminder of beauty that felt just beyond her reach. Each sunset was an unspoken promise, a hopeful end to the day, yet she felt adrift in a sea of longing. The glow painted her face, illuminating the contours of her sadness, and she clutched her chest as if to contain the swell of emotions threatening to spill forth. The world outside throbbed with life, yet she remained a mere spectator, her heart a fragile vessel, struggling against the tide of despair. She closed her eyes, surrendering to the warmth, hoping that the colors would seep into her soul, rekindling the flickering flame of connection. Life continued outside her window, unfurling in a tapestry of moments she could only admire from a distance. Families picnicking in the park, children chasing each other with joyous abandon, and lovers whispering sweet nothings. Each scene felt like a dagger to her heart. The laughter felt alien, a sound that no longer belonged to her world. Elise watched with envy as the bonds she once forged faded like the distant sound of a forgotten song. A knot tightened in her stomach as she longed to belong, to feel the warmth of companionship, yet fear kept her rooted in the shadows. She turned back to her dimly lit room, feeling the pulse of her loneliness anchor her in place, a paradox of yearning and withdrawal. As days bled into one another, the isolation morphed from a gentle caress into a suffocating embrace. The mirror became her silent confidant, reflecting a face that wore the burden of unexpressed emotions. Each time she met her own gaze, she felt the weight of unacknowledged pain pressing down, a reminder of battles fought within where no victor emerged. She longed to shatter the glass that separated her from the vibrant world outside, to scream her truth and feel the rush of liberation. A single tear carved a path down her cheek, a silent rebellion against the silence that lingered. And in that moment, she understood. The first step towards release lay in acknowledging her own heart. A fragile beginning, yet a beginning nonetheless. The dim light of the early morning seeped through the cracked window, casting long shadows across the cluttered room. Dust motes danced lazily in the golden rays, while the faint hum of city life began to stir outside. He sat on the edge of a threadbare couch, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. Each breath felt heavy as he stole glances at the empty chair across from him, its absence echoing louder than any spoken word. He clenched his fists, his knuckles white, the ache in his heart mirroring the bruises of his past. Memories flickered through his mind, laughter, promises, the sweet scent of youth. But like a fragile film, every joyful moment shattered into shards of regret, the sharp edges digging into his conscience. The coffee pot gurgled, a comforting sound that reminded him of shared mornings long gone. He poured the steaming liquid into a chipped mug, letting the aroma wrap around him like a familiar embrace. As the warmth seeped into his hands, he felt a flicker of resolve ignite deep within. This was not just about him anymore. The weight of responsibility pressed against his chest, demanding action. With every sip, he could almost hear her voice, urging him to rise, to fight against the tide of despair. He closed his eyes, envisioning her smile, the way it could brighten even the darkest days. The flicker pulsed stronger now, a beacon against the shadows of his memories, reminding him that the past could never be changed, but the future was still unwritten. With determination flooding his veins, he stepped outside, the chill of the morning air hitting him like a wave of clarity. The streets were alive with movement, a cacophony of sounds and colors that seemed to pulse with urgency. He felt the pulse of the city mirror his own, each heartbeat a reminder of family, of love, of the little girl who had once held his hand as they crossed the street. He could almost hear her laughter beneath the chaos, a sweet melody that drove him forward. Every face he passed seemed to carry a story, a silent plea for help, and he knew he was not alone in this fight. Each step brought him closer to the promise he had made, a vow that now echoed with newfound strength as he navigated the busy streets. His feet carried him to the community center, its familiar facade standing as a testament to resilience. Inside, the air was thick with hope and determination, a sanctuary where lives intertwined. He took a moment to absorb the scene, children playing, parents volunteering, and the palpable sense of purpose radiating from every corner. It was then he spotted her, a young girl with pigtails, her wide eyes filled with wonder. She was lost in a world of crayons and paper, a reminder of innocence amidst chaos. The sight jolted something primal within him, a fierce desire to protect, to nurture the potential that flickered in her gaze. He stepped closer, drawn in by the purity of her spirit, and felt his heart swell with a love he thought he had lost forever. As the day unfolded, he found himself enveloped in the warmth of community, where healing unfolded in quiet, unspoken ways. Conversations flowed like rivers, laughter rippled through the air, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of belonging. Each interaction, each smile became a reminder that change was possible, that redemption was not only a distant dream, but a tangible reality. He realized that the burden of his past no longer defined him. Instead, it shaped the guardian he was becoming. In the soft glow of dusk, surrounded by those he now called family, he felt an overwhelming sense of purpose swell within him. With every heart he touched, he knew he was not just seeking forgiveness for himself, but forging a path of hope for others, rewriting the narrative of his life. The air hung thick with uncertainty as Mia stood at the threshold of her childhood home, her heart hammering against her ribs. Each step across the creaking floorboards felt like a confession, a silent plea for acceptance. Shadows danced along the walls, exaggerated projections of her past, taunting her with memories of laughter and betrayal. Her fingers brushed the dusty banister, leaving a faint trail, as if to reclaim what had once been hers. Yet, the house felt foreign, a museum of relics that no longer belonged to her. A chill slithered down her spine, whispering secrets she had buried deep within, igniting a slow burn of trepidation that wrapped around her like an old but ill-fitting coat. In the living room, sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft patterns that painted the space with warmth and vulnerability. There, on the worn-out sofa, sat her father, his shoulders hunched, reflecting the weight of unspoken words that lingered in the air. Mia's breath caught as she observed him. The familiar lines etched on his face told stories of regret and longing. He glanced up, a fleeting flicker of hope mingling with disbelief in his tired eyes. For a moment, time suspended, and in that silence they exchanged a language of heartbeats, both uncertain, yet yearning for connection. Mia's throat tightened, grappling with the urge to leap into the embrace of forgiveness, yet anchored by the fear of opening old wounds. As their gazes locked, the unacknowledged tension swirled between them, a palpable force that begged for resolution. Mia's fingers trembled at her sides, betraying the tempest brewing within. She wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm that had grown between them, yet the fear of rejection held her hostage. Her heart wrestled with memories of harsh words and a childhood lost to misunderstandings. Each thought hung heavy, a chain pulling her back to the hurt, while a flicker of hope ignited the possibility of healing. She took a tentative step closer, her feet hesitant, yet driven by an instinct to mend what had been frayed. The air crackled with anticipation, a silent agreement that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Her father spoke, the sound breaking the stillness like glass shattering. "Mia, The words sputtered, caught in his throat, thick with emotion. The weight of his unvoiced sentiments hung heavy, drowning the room in a sea of vulnerability. She held her breath, yearning for clarity, for the truth that had eluded them both for years. Each syllable lingered, an invitation to lay bare their souls. Yet trepidation gripped her heart tighter, a reminder of the fissures still unhealed. Even with the desire to bridge the gap, she felt fragile, an unsteady flame flickering against the winds of their shared history. Could they really confront the past, or would it consume them whole? In that pivotal moment, surrounded by remnants of their shared life, Mia made a choice. She inhaled deeply, summoning courage from the depths of her being. It was time to dismantle the barriers, to trust the fragile threads of hope that intertwined their hearts. With a small, tentative smile, she whispered, "I want to understand." The words were soft, yet they echoed with the weight of intention, carving a pathway through the fog of distrust. Her father's expression shifted, a tremor of relief sparking within his eyes, igniting the possibility of redemption. Together, they stood on the precipice of reconciliation, ready to take the plunge into the unknown, where the light of forgiveness awaited, promising a future woven from the threads of their truth. The rain drummed a relentless rhythm against the windowpane, a haunting melody that echoed the turmoil in Mira's heart. She sat curled in the corner of the dimly lit room, the shadows deepening as night enveloped the world outside. Memories of past decisions danced before her eyes, each one a flicker of a flame threatening to consume her. Her fingers traced the edge of an old photograph, the faces smiling back at her, now marred by the weight of time. Guilt clung to her like a second skin, suffocating in its familiarity. Every drop of rain felt like a reminder of the choices she had made, the paths she had taken, and the vulnerability that had led her to this moment of despair. Outside, the thunder rumbled, a growl of the tempest brewing just beyond her shelter. Mira's breath quickened, the primal instinct to flee coursing through her veins, yet her body remained anchored to the spot, caught in the web of her own making. Shadows flitted across the walls, mere reflections of her fears, yet they felt more menacing than any tangible threat. She could hear the world bustling beyond her sanctuary, laughter and chatter mingling with the storm, taunting her with their freedom. A shiver of longing soared through her, a deep-seated yearning to break free from the chains of remorse. The silhouettes of her past loomed larger, morphing into figures that whispered of danger, beckoning her back to the brink. As the storm intensified, so too did her memories, intensifying the ache within her chest. Each heartbeat echoed with a sense of impending doom, pulsing like a warning siren. She recalled the last time she had felt truly safe, an innocent gathering filled with warmth and laughter, now a distant illusion. The laughter of friends had faded, replaced by a suffocating silence that filled the void around her. The hands that had once felt comforting now felt like a curse, forever stained by the betrayal she had orchestrated. The boundaries between past and present blurred, and she sensed the specters of her choices clawing at her consciousness, demanding recognition, demanding penance. Mira pushed herself off the floor, the wooden boards creaking like her heart. With each step, she moved deeper into the shadows, fueled by an inexplicable urge to confront the ghosts that haunted her. Clenching her fists, she steeled herself for the confrontation she had long avoided. The air grew thick with tension, her pulse quickening as adrenaline surged. She faced the mirror, its surface marred like her spirit, reflecting not just her image, but the weight of her hidden fears. The reflection stared back, eyes wide with vulnerability, pleading for redemption. A deep breath trembled through her, an unspoken vow hanging in the air, binding her to the resolve that she could no longer remain a prisoner of her own making. With a newfound clarity, Mira stepped out into the storm, pulling the door shut behind her as if sealing away the past. Each raindrop felt like a baptism, washing away layers of regret and fear. She moved with purpose, navigating through the downpour, the world around her blurring into a watercolor of emotion. The shadows that had once loomed over her now flickered beneath her feet, diminished by her resolve. Hope ignited within her, fierce and unyielding, guiding her steps towards something uncharted. The darkness whispered still, but this time she listened not in fear, but with a determination to reclaim her story, step into the light, and embrace the promise of a new beginning. The sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows over the cracked earth. Each step felt heavier than the last, their feet trailing in the dust of countless miles. A shared glance between Sarah and Amir ignited a flicker of understanding, a silent acknowledgement of their struggle. Beneath the facade of exhaustion, an unspoken bond had formed, stitched together by the threads of survival. They had survived storms and starvation, yet it was the weight of their silence that felt most profound, each breath laden with gratitude for the other's presence amidst the desolation. As the last light slipped away, the night sky emerged, a blanket of stars that felt almost out of reach, yet somehow they drew nearer, like unyielding constellations guiding them forward. Huddled beneath the tattered remains of an old tarp, the chill of the evening air seeped into their bones, yet warmth pulsed between them. Sarah fished out a piece of stale bread, her fingers trembling slightly as she tore it in half. She offered half to Amir, their eyes locking in a moment of intimate connection that spoke volumes. The bread was dry, almost tasteless, but as they shared it, the act transformed into a ritual of survival. Each bite they took was not merely sustenance, it was a reaffirmation of hope, a testament to the resilience that flickered like a candle in the dark. The soft crunch echoed in the stillness, a reminder that they were fighting not just for themselves but for each other, and in this battle they found solace. As the days blurred into an endless cycle of instinct and endurance, the world outside felt like a distant ghost, an echo from a life long abandoned. Sarah watched Amir, the way his brow furrowed in concentration as he scouted for water, the sun casting shadows on his weathered face. In that moment, she realized they had become each other's anchors. The bond they forged through toil and effort created a tapestry of loyalty, stitched in moments of quiet understanding. When Amir stumbled, fatigue etched on his features, Sarah instinctively reached out, her fingers brushing against his arm, a silent offering of strength. The unspoken promise hung between them. They would not let the other fall, no matter the weight of the world pressing down. Nights in the wilderness were haunted by howls and whispers of despair, but they learned to find comfort in one another's presence. Sarah lay on her back, staring up at the expanse of stars, each twinkle a reminder of dreams once held. Amir joined her gaze, the tension of the day dissipating in the vastness of the sky. As he turned his head slightly, their shoulders brushed, a fleeting touch that spoke of unity. In that moment, a sense of belonging wrapped around Sarah, a fragile cocoon hidden amidst the chaos of their existence. They didn't need words. The way Amir exhaled slowly, releasing the apprehension of their plight, echoed in her own breath, intertwining their fates even more tightly. Together they became more than mere survivors. They became a force born of shared dreams and unyielding spirit. Weeks later, the sun broke free from the horizon, bathing everything in a golden hue that felt like a promise reborn. They stood side by side at the edge of a flowing river, the waters glimmering under the light, beckoning with the promise of renewal. Sarah's heart swelled as she turned to Amir, their eyes reflecting the hope that had blossomed between them. Words were no longer necessary. The journey had transformed them, bonding their souls in ways they had never anticipated. As the current roared, sweeping away the remnants of despair, they stepped forward together, hands brushing against each other's, a silent vow to carry the light of their shared survival into whatever lay ahead. In that moment, they were no longer alone. The echoes of their past were woven into the fabric of their new beginning, a testament to the power of connection forged in the crucible of adversity. Rain drummed against the window, a frantic rhythm echoing the chaos within. Sarah stood in the middle of her dimly lit living room, her breath shallow and quick, eyes scanning the room as if searching for a ghost. Shadows flickered around her, cast by the dim light of a single lamp, morphing into her fears, past failures, lost loves, and an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. Each drop of rain seemed to pull her deeper into the mire of remorse that clung to her like a second skin. A soft sigh escaped her lips, a whispered promise to confront what she had buried beneath layers of denial and self-loathing. She shifted her weight, grounding herself against the coolness of the weathered wall as the weight of her memories bore down, unyielding and relentless. In the silence, a memory surfaced, her mother's disappointed gaze when she dared to voice her dreams of becoming an artist. The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating, haunting her as she recalled the way her mother had lowered her gaze, the silent judgment heavier than any spoken criticism. The rain intensified, each drop a reminder of the tears she had shed in secret, the night spent sketching her dreams only to cast them aside in fear of disappointment. Sarah clenched her fists, knuckles white against the fabric of her jeans. A surge of defiance coursed through her, a flicker of light piercing through the fog of despair. In that moment she felt a shift, a whisper of strength, urging her to face the storm, raging both outside and within. The door creaked as she stepped outside, the chill of the air biting at her skin, but she pressed on, driven by an impulse more profound than fear. The world around her was awash in shades of grey, the landscape transformed into a blur, yet she felt alive, each drop of rain a cleansing baptism. She closed her eyes, letting the cool droplets wash over her face, mingling with the remnants of her doubts. She was not just facing the storm, she was embracing it, each gust of wind a testament to the power of vulnerability. With every step, the weight of expectation began to lift, replaced by an exhilarating sense of freedom. The realization struck her. Fear, once a suffocating blanket, could be transformed into a canvas for courage. As she walked, Sarah recalled the faces of those who had supported her, a tapestry woven with kindness and unwavering belief. Their laughter echoed in her mind, a soothing balm against the bitterness of her self-imposed isolation. She pictured her best friend's encouraging smile, the way they had spent countless hours sketching and dreaming together, buoyed by shared hopes. The warmth of those memories enveloped her, igniting a spark within. No longer was she just a shadow of her ambitions. She was a vessel of possibility. With each step forward, she whispered silent affirmations to herself, lifting the veil of doubt that had long obscured her vision. The rain began to fade, the clouds parting to reveal a hesitant sun peeking through. Vibrant colors emerged from the gray, the world transformed into a vivid palette of hope and renewal. Breathing deeply, Sarah felt the resonance of her heartbeat, a steady reminder that she was alive and capable of change. At that moment, she made a choice: to embrace the uncertainties of her journey, to dive into the richness of experience, both bitter and sweet. She lifted her chin, the sun warming her face, a tangible promise that redemption was not just a destination, but a journey. Each step she took became a declaration of her will to rise, to paint her existence anew, no longer shackled by fear, but fueled by the fiery desire to reclaim her truth. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the cracked pavement. Each step Alyssa took felt like a rebellion against the weight of her past. Memories churned in her mind, harsh reprimands, stifling silence, and the heavy, suffocating air of confinement. The crunch of gravel beneath her worn shoes became a heartbeat of defiance, each footfall an affirmation of her choice to break free. She paused for a moment, her breath hitching, as she glanced back at the house entwined in creeping ivy, a prison disguised as home. The sight of it, so familiar yet foreign, ignited a fire deep inside her, a longing for liberation that crackled against the fading light, urging her onward. With each passing minute, her heartbeat quickened, synchronizing with the rhythm of her resolve. A sense of exhilaration surged within, pushing her forward into the unknown. The neighborhood felt alive, shadows flickering in doorways and whispers of laughter threading through the evening air. Alyssa's fingertips brushed against the cool metal of her pocket, where a crumpled map lay hidden, an imperfect guide to the freedom she craved. She imagined the places marked on it, the vast landscapes unfurling like promises waiting to be claimed. It was more than a mere escape. It was a chance to reclaim her own story, to paint it in colors vibrant enough to drown out her past. Hope sparked in her chest, a beacon pulling her toward the horizon. As she reached the edge of the familiar streets, a heaviness settled over her, the weight of unspoken farewells. Each friend she had left behind echoed in her ears, faces blurring into memories that tugged at her heart. She remembered the laughter, the shared dreams, but also the frustration of unfulfilled potential. They would either understand her quest or resent her for it. Alyssa's chest tightened as uncertainty gnawed at her, but she shook it off. She couldn't let fear dictate her choices any longer. In the distance, the silhouette of a bus station emerged, flickering neon signs casting a glow that felt like an invitation. She took a deep breath, letting it fill her with resolve, a silent promise to herself that she would find her way. Inside the station, the air buzzed with anticipation and the scent of coffee mingling with anxiety. Travelers bustled around her, each carrying their own stories, their own struggles. Alyssa watched them, their faces lit with hope or burdened with fatigue, and felt a kinship that transcended words. She stood in line, her palms sweating against the rough edges of the map, as her mind danced between the thrill of possibility and the specter of doubt. In that moment, she realized that freedom wasn't just a destination, it was a journey unraveling within her, a fierce flame igniting her spirit. The ticking clock echoed softly, each tick a reminder of the time that had slipped away, urging her to embrace the now and seize what lay ahead. As the bus doors swung open, a gust of fresh air rushed in, filling her lungs with the scent of new beginnings. Alyssa boarded, heart racing with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She settled into her seat, the worn leather a testament to countless dreams birthed in transit. As the engine roared to life, she glanced out the window, taking a last look at the life she was leaving behind. With every mile that stretched between her and the past, she felt an invisible tether snapping, a release from the chains of expectation. Tears brimmed in her eyes, not from sorrow but from the swell of newfound strength. She whispered a silent vow to the restless night. She would carve her own path, and with it, redefine her existence on the canvas of freedom. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cluttered kitchen table, where old photographs lay scattered like forgotten dreams. Maria's fingers traced the frayed edges of a picture of her father, his smile infectious, his spirit unyielding. The aroma of simmering garlic and basil wafted through the air, pulling her back to childhood memories of laughter and warmth. Yet, the empty chair across from her loomed like a spectre, its absence palpable. She swallowed hard, each breath a battle against the weight of nostalgia and guilt, as her heart ached for the unsaid words that clung to the silence. In this moment, the ache of loss twisted and turned, enveloping her in a cocoon of longing that made her cheeks burn with unshed tears. Her younger brother Alex entered the room, eyes darting to the photographs before resting on Maria. The tension hung thick, like smoke from a distant fire, as he hesitated by the doorframe, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. In his gaze, a war of emotions flickered, anger, sorrow, and an unspoken plea for connection. They exchanged a quick glance, and in that fleeting moment a myriad of memories surged forth. Their childhood adventures, whispered secrets in the dead of night, and the comforting embrace of shared dreams. Alex shifted his weight, the floor creaking under the strain of silence, and a heavy breath escaped his lips, filled with both frustration and hope. The air crackled as they stood on the precipice of a bridge, both yearning to leap but afraid of the depths below. As the evening deepened, the kitchen transformed into a sanctuary, illuminated by the soft glow of hanging lights. Maria filled the space with the rhythmic sound of chopping vegetables, her movements deliberate, almost meditative. Each slice was a release, a way to expunge the turbulent feelings that swirled within. She glanced at Alex, still lingering in the shadows, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them like a tightrope. An uninvited swell of anger rose inside her, battling against the tether of familial love that anchored her heart. In that heartbeat, she realized they both stood on the same edge. The scars of their past were etched into their very beings, and yet the possibility of healing whispered through the air, fragile and tentative, begging to be grasped. With the meal nearly prepared, Maria decided to bridge the chasm that separated them, her heart thumping with an urgency she couldn't ignore. She turned to Alex, her voice soft yet firm, laced with vulnerability. "Do you remember the summer we fixed Dad's old car?" The question hung between them, an olive branch extended into turbulent waters. She watched as his expression shifted, the hard lines of his face softening as memories flooded back. Laughter echoed in her mind, grass-stained knees, greasy hands, the scent of gasoline mingling with the sweetness of ice cream. Slowly, Alex stepped forward, his posture relaxing, the tension between them ebbing like the tide, revealing glimpses of the bond that once flourished, slowly re-emerging from the shadows of the past. Finally, as they gathered around the table, sharing a meal steeped in memories, something shifted within the space between them. A tentative smile played at the corners of Alex's mouth, and for the first time in what felt like ages, their laughter filled the room, rich and warm, wrapping around them like a protective embrace. Maria's heart swelled with a sense of hope, the realization that healing was not merely a destination, but a journey they could navigate together. In that moment, they weren't just brother and sister. They were allies united in their quest for understanding, weaving the threads of their shared history into a tapestry of resilience. A new chapter began to unfold, one filled with the promise of connection, the kind that only family can provide, an unbreakable bond forged anew in the crucible of love and acceptance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the forest, the caveman paused at the entrance of his den, once a hollowed sanctuary of solitude, now a home brimming with life and warmth. The sound of soft laughter filled the air, echoing the cries that had once pierced the silence of his isolated existence. In that moment, he understood the depth of what he had created, a family forged not from blood, but from shared pain and unconditional love. The child's innocent giggle was a melody that drowned out the haunting memories of abandonment, filling his heart with a purpose he never thought possible. With each day spent nurturing the little one, the caveman discovered that redemption was not about erasing the past, but about building something beautiful in its wake. They had found each other amongst the bones of forgotten lives, crafting a bond stronger than the hardest stone. As twilight settled over the forest, he whispered a promise to the child, a vow that together they would face whatever storms life had to offer. In the dance of shadows and light, he realized that family can emerge from the most unexpected places, and sometimes it takes the heart of an abandoned soul to truly find home. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoy powerful tales of courage, love, and redemption, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.